go. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Matt with Angry American Dads, and I am joined today by the big man Gaetano. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, brother? Ready to get into this. It's been a minute.
I'm hoping this is pretty good and it's not just a bitch session, but we'll see how it goes.
We'll
Uh,
see. It might be more commentary on things we've seen over the last month.
well, anyway, we got talking about this, and what really sparked this in my mind was I had a series of discussions, one with my dad, a couple with my dad, and a couple with a mutual friend of ours, Phil. And one thing I noticed, it's like I looked around after these conversations and I realized most of the guys that I consider friends do kind of fit this mold. They are jack of all trades, so to speak. They can do a lot of stuff. They can do basic maintenance. They can do some basic carpentry. They can do basic automotive. They're woodsmen. They're fathers. They can fix. They can do basic electrical. They can do all this crap. Okay. Well, the thing that gets me is I remember having the conversation with my dad, and he talked about mechanic work. Then he's talking about welding, and then another time we're talking about construction, then electrical, and it's all this different stuff. But I'm sitting here, and my dad's jobs for the past 30 plus years were construction. He used to do way back in the day. He did a lot of body work, and he worked for a township, a DOT, and he also worked driving plows on a military post up at Fort Drum. So I'm looking at that, and then I get talking to Phil, and we have a whole discussion about farming equipment, then his paving equipment, and all this other stuff. And then we're talking about farming that he's got going on and everything else, and some construction work he's going to be doing, and then some tree work we got to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, man, yeah, we all do this stuff, but I'm looking around and I'm realizing that so many people today, especially dudes, they do one thing.
Yep, one thing. That's it.
They have one skill set, and that's their job. It's if you're a computer programmer, that is what you are. You are a computer programmer. Most of these guys aren't changing their own oil. They're not doing their own brake jobs. They're not freaking, oh crap, they're not sitting there, okay, we're going to buy a standby generator. They're not putting the electrical in to tie it in. They're not putting the transfer switches in. They're not doing all this stuff. They hire somebody for everything. And now, thanks to you teaching me more business stuff and everything else, it's like you have to understand I understand time is one of the most valuable things on earth, literally the most valuable thing. And yes, sometimes money, it's worth spending that money to get that time. I completely get it. But my question is, what happened to all the jack of all trades?
Right.
Where'd they go? They're dying off.
Yeah.
And when you mention it, everybody gets all bent out of shape. They're like, oh, well, you're not a specialist. And that's what everybody wants is a specialist.
Right. And that is a moving target.
Yeah.
That definition of specialist.
Yeah. Specialist or expert or, I'm getting pretty freaking leery of people when they say I'm an expert in something.
I like the Navy SEALs definition of expert. I just know more than you do. That makes me the expert in the room.
I do like that. I like that a lot.
That's the definition of expert.
Yeah. Well, it's like when everybody talks about jack of all trades, the saying keeps coming up. Jack of all trades, master of none. Well, that's only half of it. The full saying is jack of all trades, master of none, but still better than a master of one.
Right.
Now, that saying has been around a long freaking time, but it's true.
For sure.
When you sit there and I roll up, I'm working at night, I roll up on a DV on the side of the road, and they're standing there, and here's some dude standing here. Well, yeah, he's got money. He's some business guy, everything like that. He can't figure out how to change the tire on his truck because it's flat, even though he's got a spare.
Or he doesn't want to get dirty.
You got to check your man card. Get the frig over it. Get the frig over it.
Yeah.
So other than dying off, I'm sitting here and I'm going, why is this such a challenge to find people to do this stuff?
I think there's, quite a few things going on in that, right? So when you and I were, at least when I was in high school, there were certain jobs that were looked at as not white collar jobs. When I was in school, everybody was trying to go to school to be a manager, right? There was no
Hmm.
shop class. Like there
Yep.
was no shop class in my school. And when my father went to school, there was shop class. When my mother went to school, there was shop class. My grandfather, same thing. So it's like the manual labor jobs where you actually had to learn how to do stuff. Um, were kind of looked down upon when I was in school, and now we're kind of seeing that certain technologies are getting rid of those white collar jobs, and those blue collar jobs are coming back. So I think that's one side of it. And at least in my life, my father and my grandfather made me do the manual jobs and learn the manual jobs so that I could be a better manager. And I think this is the same. It's
Hmm.
the same in the army, right? So
Hmm.
some of the best NCOs are the guys who are on the front lines, right? And
Hmm.
the best warrant officers are the guys who are on the front lines. So I think it's very important for our generation and generations after us to learn those jobs so that we can, if you want to go higher, you can at least get the respect of somebody that you're trying to hire, um, and actually do a good job. But I think it's been, for lack of a better term, bred out of a certain generation as looked down upon. And right now, you look at every corner, you can see, a muffler shop. Anybody with a hammer can throw a sign on their truck, and they're a contractor. And you really never know whether they can actually do a good job until you hire them. But I've seen so many, and my father and I talk about it all the time. If you've never actually done the work, if you've never actually done the body work or the mechanical work or the carpentry or the electrical, you don't know when you're being screwed. you know.
Hmm.
So I think you just like you said, know enough to be dangerous. Be a jack of all trades. You don't have to master them all, but you at least have to know when somebody's hosing you. I mean,
Yeah, that can
you know,
save you a lot of money and time.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, like just what you were telling me your father's doing. He can he can weld up a tank, in a day. When you talk about your dad, it reminds me of Hannibal from the A Team. You know, he just goes in there, starts pointing at everybody.
That's awesome.
We're just gonna love it when the plan comes together, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
my father was the same way. He came out of trade school, framing houses, and then just got sick of the manual labor. So he went back to school and became, the project manager. But he's able to manage all these projects because he knows when contractors are full of shit, because he
Yeah.
was one.
Yep.
So um, I don't know how people do it today. I honestly don't. I've had partners in multi-million-dollar projects who have no idea what a wrench is.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't be able to walk into a tenant fit up and say, yeah, that wall's in the right place, or look at a set of plans and know whether everything's in the wrong place. So I think those kinds of individuals are gonna make way for people who can actually do things, and it's gonna be, I think, even right now, you and I have talked about it with Dana White saying, if you're even a little bit savage right now, you can pretty much do whatever the hell you want. So
Hmm.
if you're savage and you know something, and you know your shit, I mean, you're just gonna be unstoppable.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you there. That's going to be a huge thing, and it's these generations, and it goes back to it's almost every topic we delve into. It goes back to this mentality of I just want to be comfortable,
Yes. Yep.
and they sit there and and this is the one thing that's always boggled my boggle my thinking here. It's they sit there and they're like, well, when I was growing up, I had to do A, B, and C, and it was really uncomfortable. So I'm not going to make my kids do it.
Yeah. Yep.
And I sit there and then when they have their kids, oh, it's okay. You can sit in front of the computer. Oh, it's okay. You can sit in front of the video game. It's okay. Oh, here's a phone. You can do this. And that's been done to them. And now they're having kids. So they themselves are sitting behind an object, freaking looking at something, reading something, whether it's freaking social media, whether it's, Instagram, TikTok, all that crap, or look at the scourge of a lot of men. They're looking at porn, they're looking at sports, they're looking at all
Yeah.
this other stuff. And it's like, instead of making themselves better, now their kids are seeing that too. And they're being brought up that way. It's like, you're lucky these guys can function at all.
Have you seen JP, the redhead on JP Sears?
I think so. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he just did, and this is a bit of a commentary, but the individual had time blindness. So she went to apply for some jobs, and she inquired as to whether they made accommodations for time blindness, because she tends to lose track of time and not be on time. And she was immediately ushered out of the interview because time blindness was not part of the part of the part of the handbook. They didn't have anything, and she was, and I'm seeing so many of these, and so we'll have to start doing some shorts on them. But it's the lack of personal accountability as to getting yourself up and just starting the day is becoming astounding. But I think the more and more I look at it, I think part of it's by design. You're awfully
Mhm.
malleable and controllable if you're bored out of your mind and you become mush.
Okay, so I just got to say this before I go into my next little diatribe here. So, time
Time,
blindness. That's
time
correct, right?
blindness. Yes,
So,
time
that
blindness.
is the woke term for being a lazy
For
POS, right?
being
Okay.
lazy.
Okay.
Yes.
Just making sure I'm on track in there. Okay.
So have you heard
Wow.
of the Pavlov watch?
Wow. Pavlov watch.
You know,
No, I've
so
heard of Pavlov dogs and Pavlov's
yes.
dogs and
Okay,
everything
check this
else.
out. So I'm watching JP and he's talking about this time blindness, and I'm thinking, what if we took the Pavlov watch? So the Pavlov watch, you can program the watch to shock you when you get near things. Like there was this guy, he made a watch that would shock him. He put a sensor near food. He was trying to lose weight, so when he went near food he wasn't
Mm.
supposed to have, it shocked him. So what I'm thinking, we take this Pavlov watch and we put a GPS tracker on at their employment. And unless they get there on time, we shock them with the watch. And we have different settings. We have settings from mosquito bite to piss yourself. And I think the more times you're late, the scale goes up from mosquito bite to bee sting to wasp, all the way up to piss yourself. So that maybe if you get to piss yourself,
Uh,
you actually have a condition at that point. You might get some some relief. So,
I like that. I think so. Oh, I might buy one of the watches. Be like,
yeah,
anytime I go near my cell phone, this thing
it's a
nails me.
bam. I remember that. Yeah, it was like
Oh,
I'm one of those
oh,
guys. I used to smoke. I was trying to smoke, and you put the rubber band on your hand, and you smack yourself every time, every
oh,
time
that's
you reach for a
awesome.
cigarette. But
That
yeah, I
is
think we take
awesome.
Pavlov's watch to cure time blindness. I think
That is
there's multiple
perfect.
applications to that.
I like it a lot. That's perfect.
But
That's
it leads
great.
right into what you were saying, man. I mean, if and it's all good. Like last time we talked about boredom, right? So I'm raising kids, and I see, they get upset that they're bored, and then for us, we used to just go out and get in trouble, right? Well, right now it's just kind of becoming anxiety. So you know, I think part of our jobs as fathers is we just got to force our kids to do stuff, and I don't
Yeah.
mind. And I think the disconnect is, it's not just telling my kid to go out and do something; it's actually going out and doing it with
Hmm.
them. Because once we're outside building something, my daughter's looking up how to build birdhouses. We're going to cut the wood. I'm going to show her how to use the saw. My son's going to, screw some things together.
Hmm.
You just got to do it. As a dad, you just got to go out there and do it, because they're not going to learn it in school.
Hmm.
Most people don't have unfortunately grandparents that have
Hmm.
those skills that want to pass on to them. So
Yep.
it's something that you got to do. And there's where the jack of all trades comes back in, because
Yeah.
we'll do electrical. I mean, we'll make that birdhouse into a disco ball. I don't give a shit. We'll just wire that sucker
I
right
like
up.
it. Well, I wanna go back because you made a statement, and I want to delve into it just a little bit. Where you sat there and you said it's by design,
Yeah.
and you sit there and you look at things as we have progressed with social media. You look at it, and it's like everything's being done to shorten the attention span. Everything is being done for instant gratification
Hmm.
because it does stuff between the brain, establishing neurological
For sure.
connections, and then it freaking fires off chemicals in the body, cortisol, serotonin, all these different chemicals. And I know I've screwed some of them up. Don't give me so sue me on that one.
Yeah. Dopamine.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody's aware of it. Yeah.
So here's the thing: you've got all that stuff going on, and then on top of it, what people don't realize, it's like this is being done. Yes, it's by design because it's being done because people that are like that are a lot easier to control.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because guess what? If they can put a screen in front of you and say, this is what you're going to do, you will sit there and eventually it'll get to the point where your job, you're going to go do something. Okay, great. But you're going to just hammer it out just so you can get back and be in front of that screen
Hmm.
because you need that freaking dopamine release. You need everything else, and you need to get that release. And it's like, this is why so many of these things are literally addicting.
Right.
And I sit there, and so you take that and combine it with everything else, and you got a recipe for disaster. And
Sure.
those people in this world, I mean, look at the World Economic Forum. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole. Here it is. You look at the World Economic Forum, they came right out and said it. We want people to be able to be controlled where you own nothing and you are happy.
Right. And we're on our way there.
Yeah, and I
It's getting
don't.
too expensive to own shit.
Oh, very much so. And
Hmm.
but it's one of those two where at the same time, human beings, once you remove them from that screen and you give them a little bit of time to kind of adjust, it's amazing how quickly you're like, you sit there and especially if you can do something in the physical realm that all of a sudden you see an accomplishment, all of a sudden it's like, well, if I can do this, I want to be able to take it to the next level. And if somebody says, well, that's not allowed, that's when all of a sudden it starts to kick in. No, I want my freedom. I want to be able to
Hmm.
do this. So you have to be away from those screens. You have to be away from that, and you have to be challenged. We don't challenge our kids in school anymore.
No.
So it is a responsibility of the fathers to freaking sit there and say, we got to challenge them. We have to do this stuff.
Yep. And as a father of young kids right now, we're going through the state tests, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the state tests are supposed to double check whether we're teaching them what they need to know and double check that they actually know it. It's, if you look at the test, the CAT test, the Iowa test, whether it's measuring anything useful is I think it's bullshit because I won't go down that rabbit hole. But what over the last few days, there's been some challenges with my son, and it takes patience. It
Mm-hmm.
just takes patience. I can't. So much do I. So many times I see today, in teaching jets and just seeing kids around, when they throw a fit, it's too much. It's too difficult for the mother or the father to weather the storm, right? My mother tells me this. My mother's told me this story a lot. A lot. I was being, being an asshole sometime when I was a little kid,
Oh, I
and
can't imagine that.
and she was at the doctor, and the doctor, to paraphrase, the doctor told her, who's the adult, how old are you versus how old is he, can't,
Mm-hmm.
and she said that kind of changed her outlook on it, and I remember that story when I'm dealing with my kids, where we're trying to do something that I know they can do. They just don't want to do it at this particular time. But they need to learn the discipline that you need to do this stuff. You need to do certain things when they need to be done, not when you want them to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes patience. I've seen where parents will just scream at them you know, until snot's running down and everybody's just having a bad day versus just do it little by little. We're just going to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the same thing we got to do. It doesn't matter whether my kids want to learn how to change a tire. It doesn't matter whether they want to learn how to shoot a gun, clean a gun, use a saw, run electrical. It doesn't matter whether they want to. I want them to be able to pull on that knowledge that I made them do it when the time comes that they need to do it, because I guarantee they're going to be the only one. And you can talk to my sister about this because she's been in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
She's been the only one who is mechanically inclined at all, and
Mm-hmm.
it saved her ass or saved her job. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's our responsibility as fathers to bring the patience to the table and just force, um, force some mechanical knowledge across the spectrum: HVAC, carpentry, mechanical, automotive, minimal knowledge. And
Yeah,
maybe that's
100%.
what we ought to do, is just come up with like a minimal knowledge book. Check this shit off. Here's the handbook. This is the minimum viable product that you need to produce by 16 or 17.
You
I don't think it'd
know,
be that big.
you know what? Actually, we'll save this for the next podcast. What we're going to end up doing is we're going to come back with the next podcast and we're going to go over like what our take is on fixing it.
Right.
And you started down that road. I want to delve into it even more. I want to break it down a little bit more. But between now and then, I'm going to look it up because it was a gentleman by the name of Jeff Cooper. He was an officer in the Marine Corps. He founded Thunder Ranch Training Academy. They teach law enforcement, some specialty military stuff, but they teach civilians, firearms, tactics, training, all this other stuff. And he had a list that he believed every boy should be able to do by the time they were 18.
Nice.
And I mean, he started preaching about this kind of stuff back in the day. He's
Yeah.
dead and gone. And now as I get older, and I mean, it really hit home for me when I became a dad.
For sure.
But it's like, as I've gotten older and I see the accomplishments my kids have made, because you've had the younger kids, I got a little bit older kids.
Yep.
And it's one of those that I see what they've done. And even with that, it doesn't mean the training's over. And there's also times where now I'm all of a sudden filling my dad's shoes that he did with me. And it's every once in a while you're there to kind of catch and
Oh,
say, oh,
sure.
I got you. We can fix this. It's not a
Yep.
big deal. But that's a great thing to have because you have that insurance policy to sit there and kind of say, hey, we can work through this, you know?
Right.
And that can be a major, major confidence booster. But
And
anyway,
it's
I want to
okay to
delve.
fuck it up.
Oh, yeah. And that's the other thing they got to learn is that. But
Yeah.
anyway, we're going to delve into that next podcast. So, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, join us back for that one. And we will delve into how to make, just like everything else, how to make your kids the jack of all trades, how to make them better people. And what we're doing, what Gaetano's doing with his kids, what have done, and am doing with my kids, and our experiences from our fathers. So I'm going to put this out there. Anything you want to say before we sign off, brother?
Yeah, I just want to hit. I think you hit it on the right. You hit it right on the head. There's a trend of, you and I've said it, the pussification of the American male, and part of that pussification is making them useless. And
Mm-hmm.
then on the other side, you hear women talking all the time that they can't find a good man. Well, you
Mm-hmm.
pussified the American male. What the hell did you think was going to happen?
Exactly.
So
You
I think,
destroyed it.
yeah, yeah. So, and I think you're correct. So many people are so focused on their one job, and my father talks about it a lot. You get so focused on your one job that you forget all the other inputs that need to go into making something happen. And if you don't consider those other inputs, then you're just going to be an asshole, and you're going to be left out, hung out to dry. If you can
Yep.
cooperate and collaborate, knowing just a little about every other person's part in a project, you're going to come out on top. So,
100%.
yeah, man.
All right. Well, we'll sign this one off. Dads out there, please do me a favor. Keep your head up. You're not alone in this.